Hey everyone, my name's Oliver, founder of Leaderneer. I just wanted to make a very quick video to introduce myself, as well as also give you some very useful tips and insights into how to improve your email deliverability. So there are a lot of outbound teams that are currently either sending a lot of manual emails, they're sending emails from one domain, they've got multiple people sending emails from a single domain, and they're sending hundreds of emails every single day just from one domain. But the issue here is a lot of those emails are either ending up in spam, not being delivered in promotions, and you also run the risk by doing that of Google blacklisting your domain, and that can cause issues. If you're using your main domain, your main company domain, that can cause issues for all sorts of emails that are coming in and out of that domain. So the best practice here is what I'm going to be running through, and this is what we use at our agency, and this is what we've been able to implement to be able to achieve, sort of 75% plus open rates, while still also being able to send thousands of emails as well, thousands of targeted emails as well. So if you're interested, I'm going to run you through a sort of step-by-step of how to actually set up this domain infrastructure so that you're not sending from one email and you're not having the risk. Because then what happens if that domain gets blacklisted or has issues with spam? You have a low open rate, which means that you're not getting in front of your prospects, which means that you're not able to have the conversations or generate the leads that you need to generate. And then you have to wait to set up new domains, and that obviously costs you time and money from the lack of prospects that you're actually talking to. So it's better to set up a system and infrastructure and have that in place so that you don't have to A, waste time, and B, risk the potential of losing money, your domain, and all these other things and headaches that you can very easily avoid by just following this sort of step-by-step. This is just the video version. You can also have a look at the guide yourself and just copy and paste. There are a couple more videos in here as well. So just to kind of kickstart everything, like I said, these are the kind of open rates that we're able to achieve. Sort of 75, we achieve consistently anywhere between sort of 70 to 85% across all of our campaigns. And that's to do with a couple of things, but deliverability and the technical setup is number one in terms of the SPF, DKIM, DMARC, things like that, probably terms that you've heard before, but a little bit confused. I'm going to go over them in this video. As well as also subject line, preview text, your targeting, your list, everything like that is super important, but it starts with email deliverability and the actual email infrastructure. So very quickly, why is it important to have the correct email infrastructure? So Google actually very recently announced that they're going to be clamping down on spam. They've been consistently clamping down on spam. The same with Microsoft and Outlook as well. But a lot of companies are sending multiple emails every single day from one inbox or multiple inboxes, but under one domain, and that's under their main domain. They may also have set up a separate domain, but they're still just using one single domain to send everything out, which means that you're probably sending 50 plus, if not 100 plus emails every single day from that domain. And if you've got multiple members on your team or sales reps on your team, and they're constantly sending that amount of emails out, then you're going to have a big issue with ending up in spam. If one person ends up in spam, then that can cause issues for the entirety of the domain. So yeah, Google are really clamping down on this. So you need to make sure that you are kind of figuring out how to stay ahead of the curve. And this is what we found so far has been able to work the best. There's a little bit more setup involved, obviously. There's a little bit more technicality, but once you've got it set up and once you've got it running, then it means you don't necessarily have to actually worry. So let's just kind of run you through the method. Rather than using one or two domains, you actually use multiple domains. So we normally set up about anywhere from 10 to 30 domains per single client, sometimes a little bit less, maybe at 5. But we have multiple domains, and then we have multiple emails under each domain. So we normally have anywhere from 1 to 3 emails under each domain. You can have up to 5 realistically if you've got multiple people on your team, but you want to have multiple domains. So what the steps involve are obviously purchasing those domains, setting up 2 to 3 emails per domain, as I mentioned, configuring the technical setup for each domain, so SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. I'll run through what that means in just a second, warming up the domains, and then slowly ramping up the sending volume, and also running through some of the best practices. So purchasing domains, you can do that on Google Domains, GoDaddy, through Microsoft, and so on and so forth, Namecheap, etc., etc. That's absolutely fine. Wherever you choose, that's fine. Try and choose one that's more reputable. So GoDaddy, Google Domains, and Namecheap seem to be the best ones. So what you're going to want to do is the methodology is purchasing multiple domains so that you can rotate the emails that are being sent under multiple domains. Rather than use one domain and send 100 emails per day from that domain, you can instead use 5 domains and 5 emails under that domain to send 20 emails per day per per email address, and then send that across five different email addresses, or five different domains. And then at that point, you're still reaching that 100 threshold, but you've spread your risk across multiple different domains and multiple different emails, so that if one of those does land in spam, you still got the other four which have good deliverability. And you can also just switch that one out for another one, which I'll go through in just a second as well, of how you can set it up so that you have backup domains that are ready to go if you have any issues with the other ones, right? And this doesn't mean that you just spam things out and you just send out a bunch of stuff. It still means you need to focus on being targeted with your list and your messaging and copy and everything like that. It just means that you have an infrastructure in place to be able to scale things up if you do want to scale things up while still remaining relatively targeted and also avoiding any issues with spam. So always make sure that you buy extra domains as well. So you want to buy extra domains and extra accounts. So if, for example, you set up 10, maybe you want to buy an extra like 2 or 3 domains and then set up 1 to 2 emails extra for those. So you have an extra like 5 to 10 email addresses that you can use. And again, you do that just in case one of the main domains has any issues. You can switch it out because the other one's going to be warming up or warmed up, so that you can kind of like get going with that straight away, as opposed to maybe right now you don't actually have any backup domains. And so what happens if one of those domains has any issues? Then you quite literally will have to wait another like 2 to 3 to even 4 weeks to actually set something back up again, which means just time lost from prospecting. And obviously time is money, so you don't want to do that. So the methodology is to send anywhere from sort of 25 to 50 emails per email address, per inbox, per domain, right? So you have your domain up here. So you might have, domain.com, right? And then you have, your first name at domain.com and then first name dot last name at domain.com. So you've got 2 email addresses under one domain, and then you would set up 5 to 10, 15, 20 different domains and set up 1 to 3 email addresses per domain, right? Does that make sense? So this is just a little bit of a guide in terms of the numbers. It all depends on what your sending volume is, how many you actually want to send, how big your TAM is, things like that, which you want to run through. So what domain should you purchase? So let's just say if your current domain is leaderneer.com, you might try leaderneer.com, get leaderneer.com, use leaderneer.com, and so on and so forth. If you're going to use a .com, you obviously need to make it slightly different from your current domain. If you use a .co, .ai, .io, .tech, something good that's reputable, then you can probably use your same domain plus the different extension. And then what you're going to do is you're actually going to set up forwarding. So if someone were to receive an email from Oliver at tryleaderneer.com, they would then most likely type in tryleaderneer.com. And what's going to happen is if you don't have forwarding on, they're going to come up with a random site. And obviously it's not going to good look if you send a stranger an email and then they look you up and they can't see that, you're anywhere online. So instead, what the best thing to do is make sure you forward it. That just means that if they do look that up, it will forward to your main domain. So again, you're getting more traffic to your main domain, as well as also, looking legitimate, etc. So when you're sending the emails up, you want to set up, for example, a pattern like this. So it could be first name at tryleaderneer.com, then first name .m or first name .marshall, or however you want to do it. This is obviously my name and what I'm using. And then you'll want to do this. So this is for one domain. And then if you have 5, 10, 15 domains, you would want to do it for multiple domains. So that's the kind of structure that you would want to have. In terms of the technical setup, so this is really, really important. But the reason why this is important is, so DKIM, DMARC, and SPF, rather than go into super long detail of what they are, it basically, long story short, it tells Google that you're a human and it authenticates where the email is actually coming from. Without doing that, you are more likely to look as spam because you look less human and look like you haven't authenticated your email, which again means you're more likely to end up in spam. So if you set these things up properly, then that means you're doing everything, and these are all best practices that are doing everything to stop you ending up in spam and increase the likelihood of having better deliverability. So the other thing that you can do as well is when you're setting up multiple domains, you can set up both on via Google Workspace. So you can have Google Workspace emails, and then you can also have Outlook emails. And the reason for this is it gives you better domain provider matching. So if you're sending an Outlook email, it will most likely go to an Outlook address rather than same if you're sending in from Google, you'll go to a Google address, right? But at the moment, if you're sending from Outlook to a Google and Google to an Outlook and so on, then there could be potential issues where, a provider starts marking you as spam. So you want to just hedge your bets in that sense by setting up half as Outlook, half as Google, and then being able to, again, mitigate that risk. And a lot of the tools and sequencing softwares will be able to do domain provider matching. So that's the reason I bring it up. So if you've got 10 domains, you might want to have 5 under Outlook, 5 under Google Workspace when you set up the actual inboxes. So, and then this here is just a way of kind of organizing everything so that once you can do the technical setup very easily, and it's just sort of a step-by-step tick box of how you do it. Another couple of things that are really important is custom domain tracking. So this is if you are tracking open rates, link clicks, anything like that, rather than use a custom domain tracking that is from your sequencing tool, then rather than use that, because everyone else is sharing that, if someone's having an issue with that, it's most likely going to show up with you. Rather than using that, you want to basically create your own, and there's a whole step-by-step here on how to do that. It's very simple. It just takes like literally 30 seconds to a minute. So once you've set that up, it just means that, again, you have more likelihood of having better deliverability and not having other people causing you issues with deliverability. You're not like sharing an IP address, so to speak. This is all a step-by-step of how you actually set everything up. This is how you input the SPF, DKIM, and DMARC values. This is how you check it within your sequencing tool. This tool that we use is called SmartLead. However, if you use anything else, they most likely will have a way of checking DKIM, DMARC, and SPF to see that it's set up properly. There's also a section here on domain forwarding, so you can see, who you're sending, be able to actually forward your domain to your main domain. So that, again, you look more legitimate, and when people look you up, it goes to your main domain. And then the next section, which is really, really important, is email warmups. So why do we need to do email warmups? Well, if you're setting up multiple domains and setting up an email address, then if you start sending like 50, 100 plus cold emails from there and you get a very low response rate, it doesn't look very human because you're most likely using a sequencing tool. So it's somewhat automated and it doesn't look very human. But it could also be manual as well, where you're just sending out loads of emails. But still, it doesn't look very human if you're doing that. So what you want to do is you want to warm up the domain. So this usually can take anywhere from 2 weeks to 4 weeks. The longer you do it, the better. But usually 2 to 3 weeks is like a sweet spot. And all you do is you quite literally, in your sequencing tool, you want to make sure that you're warming up the domain. It's very, very simple to do. Normally, it quite literally is just a click that says enable warmup. And what that does is it basically has a pool of different contacts. So this is, again, with the sequencing tool that you're using. So ours is SmartLead, has a pool of contacts, and it will just email amongst those contacts, and then it will like auto respond using AI and all sorts of different tech. But essentially, that just means that it looks more human when you're sending those emails, and it will stop your emails going into spam. It basically gives you the sort of foundation and infrastructure to be able to start sending cold emails. One very important point with this is you never want to turn warm up off. So warm up is always on, right? So when people talk about sending, say, 50 emails a day, you want to send about 20 to 25 of those as warm-ups, and that's just happening in the background. So you're not actively doing that. That's just happening. And then you want to send about 25, maybe to 30 that are cold emails. You always want to have a balance. The cold emails are going to damage your email because you're not getting like loads and loads of responses as if you were just sending like a normal email to like a colleague, because you're cold emailing people. So you're not always going to get the best responses. But that just balances it out between the warm and the cold, essentially. So you always want to make sure that that's on. And then you can kind of follow the instructions on your sequencing tool. But yeah, always keep email warmups on. And then some of the best practices, again, just going back to never turn warmups off, keep warmups on for about 14 to 30 days, so 2 to 4 weeks. Make sure that you are sending sort of 25 to 50 cold emails per day, absolute maximum 50. We always err on the side of caution, so we always send about 20 to 25 max per day, which looks a lot more human. It's just 20, 25 emails that you're sending out per day, per inbox, per domain. And again, that excludes warm-ups, so make sure that you're always taking that into account. You want to also, once you've started using a new email address, a new domain, you want to slowly bump up the volume. So you don't want to start at just doing 20 straight away. You want to start at maybe like 5 emails a day, then 10 emails a day, and this is cold emails. And again, warm-up is still always running in the background. Then slowly 5, 10, 15, and then 20, and then maybe 25. And you want to scale that up over, say, like 1 to 2 weeks. rather than go straight to 2025, right? You want to make sure that you're doing everything you can to not burn your domain and not cause issues with the domain reputation. And then just a couple of other tips in there in terms of setting your signatures and things like that within. And then there's also a video here on how to set up Outlook, creating backup domains and anything like that. So yeah, and this is just a quick mind map of what it actually looks like. I'm not sure if it'll load right now, but yeah, if you found this video useful and this is something you need some help with in any kind of way, then obviously feel free to reach out. There is a link to book in a call here. Our main goal with all of this is always to just give you as much value and be as helpful as possible. In doing that, we want to be able to just gain a little bit of your trust and kind of open the door to building a long-term relationship with you. So that's the reason why we do this. We want to just help as much as possible. And if you are struggling with this or don't know how to actually do this and it's a bit complicated and you need more help or just want to chat different ideas around Outbound, then feel free to pop in a time and schedule something. So yeah, thanks for your time and have a good rest of your day.